Hey everybody, this is Rydo and we're back to Magic the Gathering Arena. Today is Friday, June 26th. We're in a weird position where it gave us like 3 daily quests when the new core set 2021 came out. So I had to play a little bit off screen. It also gave us a new weekly XP. So over the weekend I have to get, theoretically I'd want to get all these done today. And I would like to get the 15 done today in both cases. I went up 1 level in Mastery while I was doing that, so I have another core set 2021 of cards, which, yeah, we will get these, and they will just expand our collection. And we have a good position, as it were, for just playing red cards today and experimenting with this in the hopes to maybe have an actual red deck that would work for us. I can't afford to do Jalaxian draft for 5,000 even though I desperately need gems, because yesterday we did a special video. As for that special video, it got 7 views, which is a lot more views in 24 hours than I sadly get these days for other things. But it is also still just a pathetically small amount of views. So I'm going to shill a little bit and say the Steam Summer Sale is on right now. If you want to help support me so I can continue to make content and justify all the amount of time I put into this, friend me on Steam and gift me a game. Now is the time to do it. I've got about $100 that I'm planning on doing with the Steam Summer Sale, and there's some interesting changes that I think we can talk about fairly quickly with the Summer Sale. The changes are, there's a major lack of emphasis on completing trading cards, completing badges by collecting a full set of trading cards, that is. And every time you completed a badge, you usually were getting a small item. Now these small items, which is I guess the best way just to categorize them, have been marketable for the most part and tradable items that were either chat emoticons or maybe animated chat emoticons. I think those were added in the last year or so. Backgrounds, profile backgrounds. There's now profile badges that are a thing. They are also just colored borders to your profile image. Let's see, well, interesting. And there are now stickers, and I don't know what the stickers are even really for, but that's the new thing that they're pushing with this summer sale. It's odd that they didn't have anybody leak out the announcement of the summer sale. They have been fairly consistent about having someone intentionally leak out the date for the summer sale, and instead they were emphasizing on that summer festival, which seems to have just fully boiled down to a different kind of experience where where they were just showing off demos of new games, and there's not anything too specific that's on sale in the summer sale. If anything, I'd say the sales are not any better than they have been in the past couple of years. If not, they may even be a few cents worse. Looking at the Lego games in particular, these newer Lego games are still trying to sell or being priced at a discount that is putting them closer to $13 or $14 instead of $10. And there's not the greatest argument that that should be the case, because those are the newer Lego games aren't particularly even some of the better ones. There is also a growing issue of newer games that I'm buying, as I'm buying more new games and more AAA games, that they are games that their base version are discounted to a good amount, but then by the time you buy all the DLC that's kind of mandatory, you are back up to spending $15 for what is, in my mind, a $10 game at most. I would also say that in the current economic crisis brought on by the other crises going on right about now, there's a significant less of confidence, lack of confidence financially in me, and I imagine it's only 100 times worse for everybody else, because I financially have not been really affected by it at all, but there's definitely that fear of, if this is what happens now, what happens tomorrow. Let's see. This could do 1 damage to somebody. When is dealt damage, it deals that much damage to the target opponent. Interesting. So I could use this to deal damage to this guy, to bounce damage to this guy. Interesting possibility there. So yeah, it's a hard choice. Also, it seems like one of those Black Lives Matters games bundles is adding more games from what I've heard, and I need to investigate that, because it probably would have been smarter for me to spend the $30 for the Humble Bundle Black Lives Matter bundle, if that's the bundle that is the bundle that is adding games. I think there's two or three bundles from 2 or 3 different game companies, and that's where some of that falls apart. Let's see. So if that's still an opportunity, if they extended the deadline on that, that would be nice. And I might very well choose to opt. Let's see. Yeah, hit that guy with 1 damage. Double strike until the end of the turn. Let's see. Let's see. I don't think any of those cards worked. Darn it. Oh well. So I can't attack with him because he'll tap, though, so all I can do is at the end of an opponent's turn every time tap this to do 1 damage to this, to do this. This does change some things, but not a lot, because if I was going to play this character, which is a Core 21 card, I need a bunch of spells that do more damage to creatures than damage to the damage directly to an opponent, which there probably are cards that would work that way. I wish this guy was up to a 9, Because if he was up to 9 and I had mana, which I don't, so I kind of don't wish that's the point at the current moment. That would be funny to give this guy double strike and then block with this guy and have him kill himself effectively. Okay. Exile top 3 cards of libraries. Creature cards exiled this way. Again, you may cast this card from exile as long as you control a Luca Planeswalker. And yet, I have not put a single creature in the field. Interesting. So I'm going to just go ahead and show what I'm planning in my shopping cart, which I put my shopping cart in the Steam program, which it's better to do this through the Steam website because you can print it and remember it. So the Prince of Persia Forgotten Sands Digital Deluxe Edition Tomorrow Corporation Puzzle Pack, which would give me the sequel to, let's see, the sequel to the incredible Human Resource Machine, which is 7 billion people. Lorelei, which is I don't even know if it's a point-and-click adventure. The 2 previous games weren't point-and-click adventures, but they were basically like point-and-click adventure horror games. We have a small 99-cent game for Merrily Perily. We have a $1.99 game for Typo Man. I could probably skip that. We have Cat Quest 1. We have the game Fingered for 93 cents, which is what it's worth. Max and the Cursed Brotherhood. Then we have the remake of Prince of Persia The Two Thrones, and Prince of Persia The Warriors, within which there are no deluxe edition versions on Steam of those. The Umahari Kawase trilogy for $9, that's $3, 3 games. The Walking Dead final season for $9.99. And then Calvin and the Infamous Machine, which is just a cheap point-and-click adventure. And then here we have Lego Movie 2 video game and Lego Worlds bundle, which is $23.98, which puts 2 Lego games at the price of about $11.50 each, which is still a little expensive. And they are doing something very different here. Now, if you spend $30, you get $5 off, and you're still getting trading cards, and you're still capable of getting a badge, but they are definitely de-emphasizing this. And it makes me really suspect... I lost my card, darn it. I definitely suspect that this might be an admission of giving up the weird Steam system that has existed up until this point, where they were making a flood of digital items, like really just garbage items that nobody wanted, and you were getting these items specifically because you were you were getting these items specifically because you are crafting badges. They probably, if they were going to do that, interesting. Could I win here? Not yet. This is a dumb card to trade. That's what I expected to get, but that still was a dumb card to trade. So yeah, I kind of wonder if they're going to get rid of the limitation on the number of friends. I don't think that there's been too much abuse, enough abuse to really justify there being a limitation on the number of friends on Steam. The number of people that have large amounts of friends on Steam, I think, is incredibly low anyways. So if you just said everybody could have 100 friends, I don't think people would complain. If you said everybody could have 1,000 friends, the exact same number of people that would complain would complain. Which is to say, it really doesn't matter at a certain point. The small number of people that would complain on that would complain. Or they can just say everybody can have 10,000 friends and be done with it. And I think that might be what they try to do. With the de-emphasis of crafting badges to get gamer score, as it were, on Steam to increase the odds of you getting a booster pack. That's fine with me, because it's not like I get booster packs at any reasonable amount of time. I get a new booster pack maybe once a year, and I have, relatively speaking, I think, an incredibly high score. That it only is that high because I was hoping at some day to be so successful that people would want to be on my friends list on Steam. Of course, the problem with that is people can't spare that empty slot for a YouTuber to be friends with them on Steam, if they can only have 20 friends in their list. So the whole system has been broken and a mess. And so it seems like this is an interesting point for them to say, hey, let's get away from the trading cards. They did specifically say they're not, at this time, they have no plans to get rid of trading cards, which is exactly what they would say regardless of whether they had plans to get rid of it or not. So that doesn't actually help you with any questions. But it is definitely believable that they would start to slow that down if they focused the Steam marketplace more into not having so many transactions and really just be around, hey, let's sell off the last few things that are available for sale and only be interested in the microtransaction stuff, which that's really where this is all coming from, is that they needed to find a convenient time to announce that they weren't going to be focusing on microtransactions and Counter-Strike Go knives and knife skins and loot boxes. And now is a good time for that. Otherwise, on the summer sale, they've also lowered the number, it seems like, the number of trading cards you get. You now only go through the curator list once, and they give you one card per day, where it was they wanted you to go through 3 collections of the curated list. And I went through the curated list once, and there was 2 adult games that literally had full-on nudity in them, in the screenshots, which I still feel like that's not the way to go as far as Steam should be. I think that the Steam website itself should be family friendly, and blur it, black bar it, censor it, and then you can say the game is uncensored later on in text. But yeah, I know that these are only being shown to me because I checked the box and all of that, but yeah, it just doesn't feel right. It's way too easy for anyone, including me, to open up their Steam account with a little niece or nephew in the room and browse just to some game and potentially have them look over my shoulder, which, if you even have the slight whiff that might happen, you've created a problem. Whereas compare that to Nutaku, which is an adult video game store only, like, of course I know I'm not going to open a Nutaku link or go to Nutaku's website if there's a niece or nephew in the same room as me, because that would be insane. That would be asking for trouble. So yeah, same thing. And that goes back to like old VHS times. Even though the adult movies often in old movie rental places were often hidden in the back, in an area kids weren't allowed to go, I think most of the artwork on the VHSs themselves were also censored somewhat. They were suggestive for sure, and the wording on them might be offensive, but you wouldn't see the full-on hardcore nudity or softcore nudity. Hardcore being the lower half, softcore being the top half, only being clearly depicted. And that's another thing that just clashes with Steam's idea that they can create a libertarian storefront that just works on a group of systems and have no control or curation on it. If only we could find something that is halfway between Steam and YouTube, because YouTube is way too controlling and curating, and Steam is not quite enough, at least for my taste. And it might really be a case that this really does just boil down to my personal preference. In a small part, I have found out in part why my chair has been so uncomfortable. It turned out I kind of had an inflatable cushion I was sitting on that popped a hole in it for prolonged sitting. Now, a normal healthy person shouldn't need any of that, but obviously I do, so yeah. For the past couple of streams, I've inflated that cushion up, and by the time 2 hours had passed, it was completely flat. And now I'm not sitting with it at all, which does potentially cause a scenario where this is going to be a perhaps shorter experience, because I'm just going to be in pain. And I've ordered another cushion, which hopefully works. Let's see. I also have not been feeling very well for the past couple days, and I'm hoping I'm not getting sick, as everyone is. Although there is a good chance that I simply was trying to use up some baby aspirin that I had, and I was trying to do like a heart healthy regimen on that, and I looked at the expiration date after I took them, and I was taking them in regular amounts, which it said you could take up to 8 baby aspirin at a time, so I took 8 of them, and then I looked at the expiration date. So yeah, don't take expired drugs, kids, is more than likely the reason why I haven't been feeling well since yesterday. I feel a little bit better today. And now, anytime you have anything where you feel even slightly ill, you have to keep a very tight appearance and control on your breathing patterns, because you're terrified that it's the COVID that you've got, and it's seemingly very, very easy to in less than a few hours go from feeling a little sick to needing to be on a ventilator. If you get hit by it very hard. Alright, so let's start going through the video game news. It is also worth mentioning we were doing a wishlist cleanup now that the summer sale has happened. That's kind of pointless to do that at the current moment. So instead what we'll do is whenever there is a free moment, I will choose to continue to go down my wish list and do some cleanup, because it does need some cleanup. Going through my wish list while looking at the Steam summer sale, there's a lot of games there that at the moment I just kind of lack enthusiasm for. Like, in general, there's kind of just this blasé attitude I have with games where it's like, yeah, I'll play them, but there's nothing I'm chomping at the bit that I absolutely have to play or totally want to play. Let's see. We have a game here on Steam called No Frills Klondike Solitaire, which, calling your game No Frills is a terrible name. It looks like it's just a Unity solitaire game. Something you definitely don't need yet another copy of on Steam. 99 cents, English, full audio allegedly, which is just to say that almost certainly has no voiced work. We have I Dream of You and Ice Cream on Steam, which looks like it's a weird, like, Windows 95 DOS game. Let's see, $4.49. See. I guess what I should do here is I should check. It's apparently rated M. Let's check this publisher. How's this guy not dead? Because he's indestructible. Three damage to anyone creature. I need to remember I'm supposed to be paying attention here and testing out the red cards and seeing what could work and what couldn't. Right now is a very heavy cycling red deck that I don't know if it had a level of success enough to make me want to play it. That's really where this boils down to, is I need to find cards that and decks I want to play. See. Let's see. Next, let's see. So that developer has a game that is 70% positive, 63% positive, and 70% positive, and that's a bundle. So, and looking at the titles of his other games, I don't think that there's a subversive element here that is making it look bad, but then the game is actually going to be really good. I don't think this is a Frog Fractions type game, in an easier way to say it. And I think my ad blocker is just closing the Steam Summer Sale ad, which I think that there is an argument to not bother to even have the ad blocker enabled. on Steam because I'm already on their storefront, but there might be a reason for it. I've never really felt like I was getting poor curated experience because I was using an ad blocker in Steam's case. These both instances? Yes. Alright, so I'm just gonna attack with everything. Is nobody gonna block? I guess it doesn't matter. Unless I doubled his attack and had double strike. Trample and haste. That's the only other thing I could have done. TechRaptor has an article here. The banished Halo teaser promises the return of a deadly foe. Which, okay. I guess we're getting Halo. Some Halo game being teased. They're wondering if that might be Halo Wars 2. I think it would be kind of unlikely that there would be a Halo Wars 2 game that was ever made. But, you know, Microsoft is crazy. What can you say? We've seen them do some really crazy things over the decades. Latest being them going basically all in on Mixer, spending millions and millions of dollars and then giving up fairly quickly. And there's speculation, and it's a good speculation in my opinion, that the reason why they did basically abandon Mixer is because a article came out showing that in the midst of all of this pandemic, Mixer only went 0.2% up in viewership, with everybody being stuck at home, which means their own internal metrics probably show it is even worse than that, whereas Twitch and YouTube gaming streamings have gone up quite a lot more. So, yeah, maybe they will make a Halo Wars game. They kind of have to. If you get rid of Microsoft as kind of the parent company, the Microsoft Game Studios section, the part that's all about Xbox and video games and Windows games, and just games in general, they are constantly needing to make something to show off the they need to show off the quality of their next consoles. They need to push people to continue to buy PCs so that they can get new licenses on Windows. They need something to show. So when we saw Crackdown 3 happen, which in a weird way, I guess getting Crackdown 3 out at the time they did was a very smart idea, because that game would not play today at all. Like, there would be a major boycott over it. So, yeah, we probably will never see another Crackdown game, and we probably weren't going to see that even before all of the defund the police, Black Lives Matter protest happened, which was frankly a long time coming. But I guess I should just be happy people finally started to see the truth there once it was shoved in their face with actual footage. Yeah, there's definitely a weird position that people will be in, because Microsoft needs something. They need to have something to show, and they don't have something to show at the moment. Let's kill one of those, and then kill that. And then this could do 1 damage. Moving on, Gamma Sutra has an article. Unity's Learn Premier suite of game dev courses is now available for free. Now, if you want to be a video game programmer, this is probably the best educational offer you're going to get. Learning how to program in Unity from Unity is going to be very standard, if not very good. It probably is very good also. You're not reading or learning from some book that may be standard. You're not going to the Idiot's Guide to Unity programming. Unity is a good engine to use. You probably should have some C++ education before you start learning Unity programming, but that's about the only thing I could say to that. I assume it's C++ and not C#. I think it's C++. C++ as a programming language has maintained itself very well compared to some of the other languages. They're also talking about a Q# programming language, which is one of several attempts at a new programming language specifically designed around making quantum computing programs, which I don't know how many people are going to make custom specialized quantum computing programs in the next 50 years. So that would be a very early adopter language to learn. The only other engine that you would potentially want to learn is Unreal Engine, and I think the Epic website probably has a lot of educational equipment that's free too. And yeah, a lot of people got a lot of free time right now. Now would be the time to pick up a new hobby of some sort, whether it's programming video games or something else, or just playing video games even. I always want to see if we could get more people to be first-time video game players, because there still is a decent amount of non-video game players out there, people that just have never even begun to consider it and would normally never consider playing a game, any kind of video game. And I doubt there's too much to do to bring that audience to the table, but it'd be nice to see if it did happen. The good news is the vast majority of people who have never played a video game and never will play a video game are also incredibly old, so they'll just die out naturally. Let's see. This would discard a card. So I'll just play that and not discard any cards. Gamatsu continues. More than 350 hours of Learn Premium content is available free of charge, including courses that help folks brush up on their AR, VR, and AI skills, a comprehensive C# survival guide. So they aren't using C++, they're using C#. It's basically the same, though, so yeah. I'm old. I learned C++. Maybe everybody has moved to C# at this point. I can tell you that you still are basically using C++ when programming Arduino embedded software. There is a lot of talk now about a potential death to the x86 instruction set as it is, considering that Apple has announced that they are done with Intel and they're going to move everybody up to ARM chips, which would be the a reduced instruction set, a RISC processor. I don't know if that's RISC 5, 6, 7. I could be way off on those numbers now. There hasn't been a lot of general information ever put out about when the RISC architecture upgraded and what instruction codes were added. In theory, in a laboratory, a complete instruction set, which is what x86 was, should be faster. But in practicality, Intel has been bad about creating good content, good efficient chips. So ARM chips are better with batteries, ARM chips are better with thermals, and they seem like they can be offset with having just one very fast core for the single threaded programs, which is the vast majority of programs, while having several other slower background cores for multi-threaded processes. Of course, there is a question about where does that bring in like the AMD Ryzen chipset that has like 32 cores. Like, that was the big hotness just a month ago. So, yeah. And it would be almost impossible to... Alright, we're not winning. So I'm gonna go ahead and say forget that. Instead, we're going to play our standard ranked. There's now a historic ranked, but it seems like constructed ranking does not include historic ranked. That would be seems like that's the way that plays. Yeah, it would be close to impossible to get old people with their old software, businesses effectively that are using old software, hospitals that are using old software, to move away from the x86 architecture. And Microsoft is heavily betting on everything just moving to the cloud first and foremost before that happens, which there is a good chance of that. If nearly everything you do is instead done through just a browser, then it doesn't matter if your computer is an ARM chip or an Intel chip or an AMD chip. Intel and AMD both using the x86 architecture, although in all actuality you probably are using the x64 architecture, which is a 64-bit extension to the x86. So, yeah. Let's put that on the field. This only gives you a colorless. One thing I realized is next time I open a pack, I need to turn up the voice just to see if it makes some sound effect when I open a pack, because I'm not sure that it doesn't say something horrible when I open a pack, because it does seem fairly quiet and unenthusiastic every time I get a mythic rare card compared to Hearthstone when I'm opening packs and that, and it's playing all kinds of sound effects and really trying to make it feel like you're playing a slot machine. Like, all that stuff works. Slot machines don't have colorful bright colors and lights and flashing lights and sounds for no reason. That's all like heavily studied, scientifically proven things that lock into the lizard brain of the human being and make them feel happy and joyful and give them a dopamine rush. So it's silly for Magic Arena to not do the same thing that everybody else is doing, even if that would be potentially feeding into the addiction of the whales out there that are spending way too much money on packs and Magic. Moving on, Game Master has a Switch game here. Love adventure game Trouble Days is coming to Switch on July 9th. This looks like an adult game if I've ever seen one. It's on Steam and it's going to the Switch via the eShop for 800 yen, or about $8. You know, of all the other currencies I've seen, I've never seen a very large shift in the comparison of what one thing is equivalent to a US dollar. The rate seems about to be about the same, with the exception of the pound, which seems to have shifted quite a lot around the past decade, and the Australian dollar. I know shipping things to Australia and the rates there are way different. Even if you are to do a simple conversion, people still end up charging a lot more if to ship something in Australia, from what I hear. This game, Trouble Days, seems to be you're interacting with a 3D anime succubus, and it's tagged sexual content and nudity, and yeah, it definitely looks like it is a visual novel, like adult game by the looks of it. It's rated very positively, and one of the screenshots in the video is showing a lot of cleavage, dangerously exposing, close to exposing a nipple. It's funny it's named an adventure game. Also, without showing it, say that it's $8.44 and it has Japanese full audio, while it's English and Chinese subtitles. So I'm gonna put it on my follow list. But in all fairness, these adult games, I'm gonna have to have a long sit down and have a thought about how that really is gonna play out, because it's silly. As my Steam collection of games gets larger and larger, it's silly to just have games just because you want to support the industry. That's been my excuse always, but now that I feel a little less financially stable, as everybody does, it seems kind of ridiculous to potentially have 100 adult games on my account and not be able to really cover them. I really enjoyed covering Honey Pop for sure. And Galgun 1 and Galgun 2 are on sale during the summer sale. Although with all the DLC on that, you're still going to pay a lot of money if you buy the DLC. Maybe you don't really need to buy the DLC. That's another thing that occurred to me, is that some of these DLC packages, even when they are giving you in-game content, don't really matter. But yeah, I think I'd probably only want to own 10 to 15 adult games. Just the best of the best. Honey Pop is doable. It's something I was able to cover. But if I go deep and hardcore into buying adult games and just owning them, they will just sit and stagnate. And I already have a lot of games that sit and stagnate like that. Alright, well. Now it's going to be questionable if I lose here. Did I lose because I was outplayed, or did I lose because my cards are bad? Because I'm at that high platinum tier level already. Moving on, TechRaptor has an article. Project Cars 3 release date is set for August 2020. Do they have an actual day? Apparently not. So, yeah, another racing game. I don't know how many racing games I really could play in a year. Probably less than one on average so far. Here we have a multicolored card. At what point do I concede? Is this guy gonna mutate? Can he mutate onto other creatures and get rid of other creatures? See, if he mutated all of these creatures into one big creature, and then I could play this, which I can't play this anytime soon. Yeah, let's just save ourselves some time and concede. I was a little bit surprised to see that the Walking Dead final season was even on Steam. The Epic Game Store has been still this consistent monkey wrench in the way things worked, and I'm not sure if we're ever going to be able to really get away from that. It may just become standard that it is just always going to be confusing to see what games are on Steam and what games aren't. But it does create weird things like The Witcher 3. I'd like to get The Witcher 3 Deluxe Edition, but I don't know if there's really a relevant reason for me to do the DLC that I didn't do now, even though I'd like to actually play it, so it would just be a personal preference. And the only reason why I need to get the base game is because I was given a free copy of The Witcher 3 through Good Old Games by buying a video card, and I would much prefer to have that on Steam and not spend money and be forced into using a storefront I never chose to use in the first place. Moving on, TechRaptor has an article. TT Games shows off a Lord of the Rings game they never made, which, in all fairness, I would have to assume that this is the new company that is going by the name TT Games, not the old company. Wait, well, actually, TT Games is not Telltale Games. TT Games is the developer of the Lego games, Traveler's Tales. So, interesting. Yeah, TT Games, best known for the Lego games. Apparently, at one point, we're working on the Lord of the Rings game. And I saw this YouTube video. I didn't click on it, but it was like the title, "Did We Waste $1 Million?" And I guess the idea is they probably did. And it is also worth mentioning that TT Games is owned by Warner Brothers, and Warner Brothers owns the Lord of the Rings series. So the reason they would have had the license, or even begun to think they could get the license, is because of that. And that really is the only reason why the Lego games work half as well as they do, is because half of the Lego games are Warner Brother properties, so they're not really paying a license, or one department is paying a license to another department of the same parent company. The only other company that could possibly have made Lego games would have been something like Disney. Yeah, that would be about it. I can't think of any other company at the moment, or if Marvel was still independent, maybe at that point Marvel could have made Lego games, or Nintendo could make Lego games. There could have been definitely a whole collection of Nintendo centric Lego games out there. Let's go ahead and kill this guy. Taking a sweet time. Let's see. TechRaptor has an article here. Valorant competitive mode debuts in patch 1 0.02, which, okay, I'm not sure how many people really are playing Valorant, but the number might be high. I'll also say Wizards of the Coast came out and announced that they were getting reports of people getting a black screen, amongst several other issues, with the new version of the thing. I've been getting the black screen for quite a while now, but maybe for different reasons, because I was using the overlay software, and I don't have the overlay software enabled today because I think it needs to be updated. But yeah, I definitely had it multiple times this morning before I started streaming. And yeah. My goal to stream around noon or 2 in the afternoon is not seeming like it's going to get achieved anytime soon. It's probably a fairly bad idea anyways with the summer heat and all. It seems like I'm, instead of doing a winter hibernating, I'm doing a summer hibernating, in which I fall asleep in the hottest part of the day. And staying awake in the coolest parts of the night. But it's not really working out well for me, because it's not like I'm being extremely productive or efficient in what I'm doing in the middle of the night. I'm mostly sitting around just watching TV and accomplishing very little. Oh wait, I need to click next. So Gamma Sutra has some more details. Steam Summer Sale debuts a new permanent Steam feature, the Point Shop. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention that. You now get points. The points are what are used to get you the small things, the backgrounds, the emoticons and such. For some weird reason, I already have quite a bit of points, like $15 worth of points, which must have rolled over from some other previous sale or experience. But it is interesting that that's a new permanent feature, and it is definitely a more direct feature. No longer are you having to randomly hope that you get a drop of something that you might want. Not that anybody really wants any of these small item content things. They're all garbage. They're all little toys you would get in a dime party bag at a dollar store. Basically, they're just waste of digital space. Let's see. But yeah, no longer do you have to hope for a random drop, and if you don't get that random drop, go to the marketplace and buy it for what would have been 3 cents anyways. So I think the Point Shop is a good idea. I think the offerings for what the Point Shops are going to offer are still going to be a fairly bad offering, though, because all of it is just very superfluous, just pointless stuff. I don't know if superfluous is a real word or the right word. Next, TechRaptor has an article. The Hearthstone developer teases their next game called Project Ambrosio, which seems to look more like a horror game in more of a standard experience, instead of looking like a full motion video show, although this might be rotoscoped full motion footage. It would be very, very wise for the Hearthstone developer to get away from being described as the Her Story developer, considering he also made Telling Lies, and that did not get reviewed well or received well at all. And Telling Lies really was just an attempt at only slightly changing the experience from Her Story, and Her Story was a one-time thing that was only going to work that one time as an idea. What we really would have wanted to see from Sam Barlow's second game, which would have been Telling Lies, unless he made something before Her Story, which I don't think he did, would have been good writing, better writing even than what Her Story had to do, with a lot more gameplay and a lot more mystery and intrigue, so that he could establish himself as being a consistent creator of the good elements that we saw in Her Story. Instead, he left himself looking like he just lucked out and didn't understand why Her Story was well received, and when he tried to double down, he doubled down on a bad hand. Still can't quiet these guys. I looked at a card that would synergize with this card, because this is whenever you gain life, target opponent loses that much life. So I was looking to see if there's a card that was like whenever your opponent loses life, you gain life. That way you'd create an infinite loop and win when you just had 2 cards on there. There is like one card that I found that could kind of do that, but that was pretty much it. The rest of the cards I saw did not have anything even slightly like that, and probably for good reason. But now that I do have this in my deck, I can do something like this. Gain 3 health, make him lose 3 health, and then he's down to 4, which puts him down to 2. And I gain 3 health, so that put it back on the field. Oh man. So this is even better than Cauldron Familiar. I should have probably been doing this every turn. Well, I couldn't have done it in the previous turns, but I can do it now. Gamatsu has the Xbox Live games, free games for July. Let's see, what's the list here? WRC World, I guess that's World Rally Championship 8, UNK Lords, Saints Row 2, and Juju. I don't recognize Juju. Saints Row 2 is an old game. Dunk Lords, it's probably a basketball game. And World Championship Rally, or World Rally Championship 8 is just a racing game, obviously. So, yeah. Still get decent games every now and then when you get the free games with gold. But not great games. On occasion you get great games. Enough to not make you actually think about eliminating the potential. Membership. Yeah, the Xbox Live Gold membership is practically required because of online play and such. So it would be a hard sell to tell people to cancel it. So here's Magic Arena's Twitter. We'll see. So they're investigating reports of players not really receiving in-game chats or notifications. They'll update you on more information. They're disabling in-game social features at this time. So they're also investigating reports of players experiencing black screen after the 1.09 game update for the release of Core Set 21. We've identified the cause of the issue and we're working towards releasing a hot fix as soon as possible. There's no ETA on it. Scheduled maintenance is currently in progress 22 hours ago. So, yeah. It is a sad echo of the accusations that are put against Wizards of the Coast that they don't test internally their card sets enough before they release them. It seems fairly similar that they don't test internally their updates enough. Because you definitely don't want to release a new version and have people complain about it. And in all fairness, they probably would set themselves up nicely to simply not put out any major changes or updates when a new expansion comes out, and instead 2 weeks into the new expansion put out a new update that just adds features, so that you can have a feature tick cycle that comes out, and then you have an expansion talk cycle where all that gets added at that point is cards that are unlocked at that point, cards that very easily could have already been downloaded, at least in the majority. It's totally possible to have a game have like 98% of the encrypted card data and art data and everything pre-downloaded, and then on day one you just give that last 2% to decrypt it. Moving on, Komatsu has an article here. Doom Eternal Update 2 is now available. A new battle mode map, events, and game improvements are released. That was another feeling I definitely had while looking at games on Steam, is some games like Wolfenstein 2, I should play it. I played Wolfenstein 1. There's a decent argument to playing it, but I definitely didn't feel enthusiasm around that at all, so it's kind of hard to justify spending the money to just continue going down a path. And I didn't really even have anything I disliked about Wolfenstein 1, really. I thought it was a fine first-person shooter. And in that case also, I have the lovely excuse where I can say, well, before I play Wolfenstein 2, I should play Wolfenstein the Old Blood, which was the side story. So that is also something to consider. They announced that there was going to be an anime based on The World That Ends With You as a game. I don't think I have a way of showing that off, but it was tweeted out. So that's one of those weirder examples. There you go. Free victory. As soon as you stop playing ranked, you immediately get a free victory. Great. Alright, so let's adjust the audio. We'll turn the voice up all the way. Go to a pack. And let's just listen to the sound effects and the flashing lights that we get when we open a pack. You get a quiet little explosion sound. The music goes down. It probably should go down and build anticipation as soon as you get in the pack window. And I got a slight swooping sound effect for getting an uncommon wild card. Looking at the actual cards, I got seemingly no sound effect for getting a new copy of a card that I didn't have at least one copy of it. But they did add this new icon, which that wasn't there a year ago. And then the way this is seemingly always built is that you always will get 5 commons, 2 uncommons, or higher, maybe, and then 1 rare or mythic rare. Then you just kind of get the same sound effect with that also. That is a pretty pathetic sounding experience. Yeah. There's just no energy there. I think Magic might very well benefit from having kind of a narrator character. Bring in some of those Planeswalker characters, or bring back the little sprite character to talk to you in the tutorial stuff. They didn't do anything with that sprite character. Hearthstone was very good to keep the Innkeeper as a character that you just never really forget about the Innkeeper existing. Every time you launch Hearthstone, the Innkeeper welcomes you. So it wouldn't hurt to have some Planeswalker character or the sprite act the same way. Moving on, the Epic Games Store has some games that are free right about now. Air, A-E-R, and Stranger Things 3, the game. There was no Stranger Things 2, the game. There was a Stranger Things 1 game that was, I think, fairly different from the third one. And then Conan Exiles and Hue are coming out later on for free games. I guess I have to play that, and I can save that, and then do that. Stranger Things as a series still. I didn't particularly enjoy the third season. I felt like maybe the second season was different enough to be interesting, but it felt like the third season in particular was really just going down the motions and doing the exact same thing over and over again. I kind of would have preferred, I think, the Stranger Things series to be more of an anthology series with different monsters each season, very possibly different people each season, but they didn't go down that route. They probably should have. It wouldn't have hurt them to have some other series that was exactly like Stranger Things, but it was an anthology series and there was a different kind of monsters. And then they could continue the main storyline as its own thing. But yeah, if there was a Stranger Things alternate reality spin-off show, that would have been fine. We haven't seen Netflix do any of that, actually. They've never really tried to milk one cash cow for more than it really was worth. They barely even fund shows enough to have them make it to 3 or 4 seasons. Let's see. Moving on, Xbox has a article here. The Xbox Series X embraced the full power of console with games optimized for Xbox Series X. So there's a new logo that we will start to see, I imagine, on games. Now, is it? Yeah, they're calling it Xbox Series X in the branding. It's not Xbox One Series X. It's just the Xbox Series X. But effectively, a Xbox Series X game is the same kind of disc as an Xbox One disc, and there's a decent chance that even 4 or 5 years into the Xbox Series X being out there, you could buy a game off a shelf and put it into an Xbox One and it would still play. Whether it played well or not is a different question. Moving on, we have a chapter article, Solve a Conspiracy Through Memory in Don't Forget Me. This looks pixely. It looks like a point and click pixel experience, maybe with some programming elements. Apparently this game is on preview. I'll wait till it actually comes out on Steam. I've got too many games that are already on my follow list that haven't even come out yet. I've been fairly bad about making sure that doesn't happen. Gamatsu has an article here. The Konosuba, God's Blessing on This Wonderful World, Love for This Tempting Attire game, first print bonus shoot 'em up game has been detailed. So this is a side game by the looks of it for a Konosuba game. Konosuba being an anime based off of, I believe, a light novel. I believe Konosuba is an abbreviation of God's Blessing on This Wonderful World. And if I recall correctly, the general idea of the anime is that some loser character dies in the real world and a god/goddess says that she's going to send him to a new fantasy, like Tolkien-esque fantasy world, and that he can have he can take one thing, any one thing he wants to help him be successful in this new world, and he chooses to take the goddess herself. So then this closer to a demigod, I would imagine, than an actual full-on god character, gets forced to stay with him throughout his fantasy adventures. Now, if you're an older anime fan, you will probably remember that there was a series called Oh My Goddess, where effectively it's a very, very similar story to that, with the only real difference is that the main characters in Oh My Goddess are still in, for the time, modern day Japan, and they are just living out their lives. And I think one thing you could probably say about Oh My Goddess is that they kind of fairly quickly established that Belle, I believe, was the main feminine protagonist in Oh My Goddess, was actually in love with the main male protagonist in the story. So it wasn't just a haha, I forced you to be around me. Instead, it actually was a rather well-written romance, which they made a movie that kind of shortened that whole story, and the movie kind of just tells the whole story a second time over. So it's a weird experience to watch the TV series and then find a right point. I don't even know if there is a right point to watch the movie, and then try and integrate the events of the movie into the occurrences of the TV series. Yeah, that would be fairly hard to do. But I do think the movie was a lot prettier. Of course, it has been a long time since I've seen either one of them. They're on my shelf somewhere. Let's see if I can find them. Yeah. I have a big box set of Oh My Goddess, and then I have the Oh My Goddess movie, and then I have, apparently there's an OAV Oh My Goddess too. Before that there was a OAV called Oh My Goddess, OH instead of AH, that was more of an adult spin on it. So technically you should watch Oh My Goddess if you want to see the whole series. And then there's Adventures of the Mini Goddesses, when at that point they went crazy, and that they're making a very kid-friendly spin-off series. And interestingly enough, in my system on my shelves, I put things that I think are more kid-friendly, typically on the left side of a shelf, and things that I think are less kid-friendly on the right side, so they're not alphabetical, and each shelf is a category of a genre of series. So directly to the right of it, well, almost directly, there's one disc in the middle, is Tenchi Muyo. So I would, at the time of making that system and organizing it, in my own mind, I was thinking that Tenchi Muyo was more of a adult unfriendly series than Oh My Goddess. And that probably is true when you consider some of the Tenchi Muyo stuff is fairly more explicit. In Tenchi Muyo, for instance, the main character bounces between 5 or 6 potential love interests, and in Oh My Goddess, it is just Belle that is the only real love interest. There are some other female characters, but they are the sisters of Belle, and they are friendly, effectively sister-in-laws to the main character. I don't know how accurate my system is, and when you're talking anime, the system is kind of pointless anyways, because at a certain point you just have to say F it and say, well, is this 12 or 14-year-old mature enough to see an occasional anime boob or not, because even something that is 99% kid-friendly by puritanical Western United States standards, the Japanese content, unless it's been specifically censored, is going to have that occasional topless like group bathing scene or something like that, or the occasional lewd joke that gets translated accurately. Moving on, back to video games, we have Coronavirus Nanoforce. So it seems like we're going to get something with coronavirus in the name every couple of days at this point. This does just look like a low effort Asteroids clone for 99 cents. Let's see if we can get somebody to block that. Well, I have to say I'm enjoying the free victories, but it's going to put us in a weird position if we somehow get 15 victories before we're done with all the news. Although, that's a problem that we should deal with if we ever reach that problem, because I've never yet actually gotten 15 victories before I was done covering the video game news and magic. OpenCritic has an article here. Phil Spencer hints that the Xbox Series X launch may include Xbox All Access payment plan. That's an interesting idea, and there's a decent chance at that, certainly, because they were sticking their toes into the idea of payment plans, and with the current economics of the world, a payment plan does make a lot more sense. I would be much more willing to spend $70 a month for 10 months to get Xbox Live Gold online functionality and a free game, or 4 free games, and a portion of that is going towards a $600 or $700 console. But that does also open up the dangers of somebody just stopping to pay stop paying it really quickly. Moving on, Komatsu has an article for the PS4, Mobile Suit Gundam Extreme versus Maxi Boost On pre-order trailer. I don't know what Maxi Boost On is. Never heard of it. Must be some kind of toy or like figurine seller. So looks like this might be interesting, but I've seen a lot of Gundam games that have not sold well. Maxi Boost On might be like some kind of mobile game. I could also be misreading it. This might be Mobile Gundam Suit Extreme Versus, as in the name of it is Mobile Gundam Suit : Extreme Versus, Maxi Boost On. That might just be one long title to indicate what game this is, since there's just been so many Gundam games and they are fairly common to do some crazy naming of Japanese games. To get back to the payment plan idea though, I would imagine it would be a very, very small program where you would have to go into a Microsoft store, of which there's probably not that many out there, and in that Microsoft store you would then have to put out some information so that they could ensure that they have your actual address, your actual ID, they could hunt you down. It's fine and dandy for them to disconnect somebody. They could easily disconnect somebody that stopped paying on an Xbox system, but even at that, it would be fairly easy for most people to know somebody that could take a Xbox Series X apart and at least get the hard drive memory out of it, assuming that the SSD is not soldered onto the motherboard, which it might be. Actually, I think it probably is on the Xbox One, so there might not be any like resellable parts inside of an Xbox Series One, but that still doesn't stop a lot of people from getting something on a payment plan and then trying to sell it on eBay or pawning it or something. So yeah, Microsoft would definitely want to have some way to track down and recover a Xbox Series X if you were on a payment plan and you didn't pay. And that is inherently always the hassle of these kinds of systems, is that they are a pain. Let's see. Moving on, Gematsu has an article for PC, PS4, and Xbox One. Tales of Arise has been delayed past 2020. Tales of Arise, a JRPG by the looks of it that I don't really recognize. So, like, not only are we running into hype cycles being crazy, we're also running into now announcements of delays. Let's see. Attack with this. And then let's see. Attack with this one. And then attack with this one. We'll see what happens. That didn't work out too badly. YouTube did an interesting thing where they put out a video talking about contributors, which are effectively unpaid employees of YouTube that make their YouTube channel succeed somewhat by telling other people how to make their YouTube succeed, whether or not their help is actually helpful or not. Like, best way to get rich is to write a book about how to get rich effectively. But then the contributors video, unless they in the setup mentioned that they were focusing on contributors from outside the United States that didn't speak English, it was 99% people who weren't speaking English outside the United States. So it was just contributors all around the world, which, like, it's definitely a different experience to try to be a successful Japanese YouTuber than it is to be a successful United States YouTuber than it is to be a successful Brazilian YouTuber, because the community there is very different. Your audience is very different there. So it was kind of not a helpful video in any way, because A, they weren't saying anything, and B, even if they were saying something, they wouldn't be saying anything that was relevant to most people. And I still have to really reserve thought that I just don't think, unless you're a big person, a big celebrity that Susan Wojcicki wants to give elevated status to, you're probably not going to succeed on YouTube. It's just too old. The next big thing would be the thing to get in on at day 0 as quickly as the next big thing happens. So always keep your eye out for that. Maybe you make YouTube videos to just cut your teeth and become a better content creator, but don't expect to succeed there. Even the people that do go viral seem to not really be able to maintain that virality in any ways anymore. Speaking of the next big thing, apparently there's a Twitter alternative called Parler, that claims to be free speech, which they all do until they get really challenged on it. Then they stop being free speech, or they never get an audience in the first place, or they stay being free speech but then they become overrun with trolls, or just hate mongers. So yeah, I can see a lot of people leaving Twitter for a new Twitter alternative, although I'm not sure if anybody was even really out on Twitter either anyways, because Twitter never really seemed like it was anything other than the thing that you could use to follow famous people and celebrities and occasionally complain about your internet service being down and maybe get some customer service by complaining on Twitter. And they pretty much, that doesn't work anymore either. But for individual people, you still were probably way better off using Facebook to communicate and be seen and heard than Twitter. If anything, I would say all the social media sites have gotten way worse about actually being social media sites, about empowering individuals to be seen and heard, and instead they have been way more focused on just making celebrities seen and heard. Anyways, moving on, we have a game called Gatewalkers, which apparently is an alpha by the parentheses. I would assume that that's what that means. So looks like this might be a kind of Diablo clone. Looks interesting enough for a follow. Although this is just a demo. Interesting. So we've now seen the beginning of the end of the concept of demos being sacred, because we now have found somebody who's figured out a trick where they can just label their early access game as a demo and as an alpha, and then promote it towards a potential finished version of the game that may or may not ever come about. Which, in all fairness, there probably should be some kind of change to the early access label. Some kind of revitalization of that, some kind of timer that stops games from being labeled as early access for years upon years. More and more we're seeing people not use the early access because of the negative connotation around early access games. So it's becoming a ineffective descriptor, since unless Steam wants to force it onto games. And that would be kind of funny, as if you could flag a game as early access, you're unfinished, then a lot of games would get bandwagoned and flagged as early access. So Steam would almost certainly never allow that to happen. But yeah, we're already seeing a problem with the dark side of Valve pushing for demos, because once they push for anything and focus on anything, there will be a way to monetize it or manipulate it, clearly. Let's see. Moving on, Beyond the Steel Sky launches June 26th for Apple Arcade and July in PC. This is the very, very odd sequel to Beneath the Steel Sky, a game that's very, very old. And almost certainly the story and the events are barely going to be related at all to Beneath the Steel Sky. It will just be some kind of attempt at making a 3D game that is sort of like a point-and-click adventure, but modernizing it quite as much as they can. And one of the reasons why Beneath the Steel Sky is fairly popular is because it's free. It's just like you can have a free copy of it and use it with the ScumVM emulator. But even as a point-and-click adventure game, I wouldn't say that it's really anything to write home about. See. OpenCritic has an article here. The Messenger, Streets of Rogue, and more have released on Xbox Games Pass. So it's a list here of games added to Xbox Game Pass. Yeah, we're really getting a lot more Xbox announcements, and announcements that are not happening on Friday. So I might at some point have to decide to roll back how much coverage is actually needed to be given to Xbox information, because frankly a lot of Xbox stuff is not relevant to me as a PC gamer, and I don't know if it's even really that relevant to two Xbox gamers. See, next we have a game on Steam called Synonym, which seems to be kind of an asset flip game that seems to also have some like word puzzles around it. So you have like position here, and then you break up the words so it doesn't spell position while you're moving blocks. And then you have the word height upside down, and then it raises the height of the blocks. If I thought this was a real game, I'd put it on the fall list, but I'm iffy. $4.49, English only. Suppose I'll be generous and put it on the fall list and see if people review it, but I'm very, very iffy that is going to be anything. Let's see. I really don't need to do anything. I don't know if this card is worth having in the deck, honestly. Turn up to 2 target creatures from your graveyard to your hand for 1 mana. Open Critic has an article here. Pokemon Unite is a MOBA style title coming to Switch and mobile. This is the Tencent game that people really don't seem to like the trailer and the video for it and the announcement of it. In general, without having seen any of the trailer or anything, the idea of turning Pokemon into a MOBA does sound pretty bad. The idea of doing too many new mainline mobile, non-mainline mobile Pokemon games does sound like a bad idea. I think when people want Pokemon, they want just mostly the Pokemon main games, and they're willing to put up with a Let's Go series game or a Stadium series game or a Snap series game, but I don't think MOBA plays into that well. See, next we have a Switch article from Komatsu. Avicii Invector Encore Edition for Switch launches September 8th, which that sounds like maybe it's a music game. Yeah, looks like it's a music line rider game. Is there anything we want to tap? Can tap that. See, yeah, this card doesn't feel like it's necessary. Feels like it's just in the way. Gamatsu has an article here. Chris Tales, 9 minutes of gameplay. This looks like a RPG of some sort. Kid-friendly RPG by the looks of it. Interesting art style. There might be enough here. Or it might just be a dungeon crawler. And it might be boring and repetitive. That is also a possibility. I kind of played badly there, because if I had sacrificed this guy first, then I might have been able to do something else a little bit quicker. Let's see, so whenever you gain life, so there should be 4, 8, 12. Let's see if this wins. I'm gonna risk this. If it doesn't win, at the very least, nope, we'll lose. Okay. We did win, but we did it because we got lucky, not because the card worked that way. So that does point out some things. We'll just keep on opening packs. Might as well. Although it does seem like they're fairly uninterested in giving me many cards because they're giving me wild cards already. That is definitely part of the reason why I didn't bother to have anywhere as many packs open this time, because it did seem just kind of unimportant. 2 life from that. So yeah, I'm gonna get rid of that one, and then I'm gonna add one there. I don't have one to add, unfortunately. Can I add one of these? Yes. But honestly, I probably should just add another Blight Beetle. Just make a small little tweak. Next, we have an article. We have a game here on Steam called Ploid Saga. It looks a little soft on the animation. Yeah. Looks like it's a shoot 'em up, or a combination of 3 games, one being a shoot 'em up. $10.79, English only, and this is from a game company called Nape Games. I don't recognize this. I don't recognize the game, so I'm gonna just go ahead and say no to this and be a little bit more crueler than I have been lately, but I should be a lot more crueler to a lot of these games. Particularly when I look at my wish list, which is supposed to be the list of games I really want to buy, and a significant number of them are like, yeah, I'd be fine owning them, but I really don't have a huge desire to play those games. See, next we have a game on Steam called Vergorn. I don't know actually how you pronounce that. Like, it looks like it's an asset flip game though. Asset flip. It's free, so I guess the price is right. English full audio. I would have thought it would have been Celtic or Swedish or Danish with a name like that. Let's go ahead and do this. And do this. Play that. Play let's see. Gamatsu has the Famitsu sales indicator. So, Last of Us Part 2 did sell 178,000 units compared to Animal Crossing, which has been out for apparently 3 months and is still going strong. Clubhouse Games 51 classic Nintendo things sold half of what Animal Crossing sold. Clubhouse Games has that game Hanafuda in it, and I saw the Game Grumps actually playing it, and I'm like, oh wow, I finally saw somebody play it enough for me to even begin to understand how you play with the Hanafuda cards. It's an interesting system where it clearly seems like the cards for Hanafuda were written for illiterate people, which in Japan that would make a lot of sense, that they wouldn't be able to read much, if at all, and so it is straight up pictorial game with no numbers or anything on it, so not even people that could count. Although, yeah, I'm sure plenty of people could count. The game is just written in a weird way. And that's just one of the 51 games in that bundle. So it's a pretty good offering. Ring Fit Adventure is still selling strong, so I guess people can get that now. Harakanoru Toki no Nake Day 7. The Namco collection, or the Namco collection. Mario Kart 8 came out in 2017, still selling very well. Pokemon Shield and Sword combined are still selling fairly well. Splatoon 2 selling fairly well. Smash Bros. Ultimate and Minecraft Nintendo Switch Edition. So all of those games really just point to painting the one picture that as there is more people having to stay home and having nothing better to do with their lives in Japan, that there are more sales happening for the Nintendo Switch. People are buying the Switch, and people are buying that original launch window of products on top of the good products that have come out in between the launch window and now. It's a little crazy to be reminded that the Switch came out apparently in 2017, 3 years ago, because it definitely doesn't feel like 2 years from now, or even 4 years from now we're going to get an announcement that tells us a Switch version 2 is coming out. Although I wouldn't be surprised if the Switch 2 is just a slightly more powerful version, or better battery life version of the Switch 1, and there's not any major change. The Switch Lite had already done that, so yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if there's no major changes. Number 12 is Last of Us Remastered, so a lot of people got Last of Us Remastered to play before playing the Last of Us 2. Xenoblade Chronicles, Super Mario Party, Brain Training Game for the Switch, Breath of the Wild for the Switch, Zumba Burn It Up exercise games are for the Switch. Although by the time you hit number 18, only 2,590 units apparently were sold, or unless these are in increments of 1,000 or 10,000, which I don't think they are. Luigi's Mansion 3, Mario Brothers Deluxe, Final Fantasy VII Remake. That one slipped fairly quickly. Grand Theft Auto 5. Yeah, Nintendo Switch is holding dominance amongst the top 30, with the exception of Animal Crossing New Leaf Amiibo Plus for the 3DS, and I'd say there's about 6 at most PlayStation 4 games. And when you see the actual hardware sales, yeah, 50,000 more units in Japan were sold for the Switch, plus another 23,000 units for the Switch Lite. Whereas, in comparison, the PlayStation 4 Pro, combined with the PlayStation 4, only sold 12,000, which is half of what just the Switch Lite sold. And they're still getting decent numbers for the new 2DS LL, including the 2DS, and the new 3DS LL, which sold only 121, which is still way better than the Xbox One and the Xbox One S, which barely sold 25 in its totality. No, 32, if I do the math right. So it seems like the Switch is the winner of sales this week, and has been a consistent winner of sales in Japan for quite a while now. Oh, someone was on the chat, sorry. Ever since my phone got an update a month ago, it even plugged in, it won't stay on. It goes into a screen timeout mode. So it sucks now. So we have someone says, "Hi, how are you?" And then they put an emoji of a cat in the box. "Hi, sorry it took me so long to see your message and respond to you." Yeah, I really wish there was a way to fix that on the Samsung Galaxy phones. This new update they've done that times out the screen when it's even plugged in. It's just ridiculous, because there's a whole developer option that says don't do that, so we can always look at the screen, and it says no, forget you, I'm gonna still dim the screen and time it out, probably to save the battery or to irritate anybody, although I suspect because they were thinking about putting ads on the lock screen, they put in this code because of that, and then they got harassed into not doing that because that was not going to fly over well. But it would be very ridiculous to force me down the route of having to root and hack my phone just to get a screen timeout to work correctly. To disable a screen timeout. And there's several apps that say they work, but they don't because of this new change. There was an announcement, I don't know if it's really worth mentioning, but Lorelei added some new translations in version 1.10. That is interesting, to say the least, and nice to see when game developers continue to work on their games and try to make them more accessible. That's good business on their part, and just good human citizenship in general to try to address as many people who speak as many different languages as possible. Next, we have a game on Steam that's just a bunch of Asian characters, and it looks to me like it is a Japanese version of 2048 or a Chinese version of 2048. I imagine these are just the numbers, and no, you're not matching numbers, you're matching brush strokes to spell something out. Yeah, this is the kind of game that would never translate to English. It's an interesting idea, but it would just never translate because you would have to have familiarity with the brush strokes required to make certain characters. So English is not supported, $1.97, Chinese only, full audio, allegedly. I am enjoying the fact that I don't have to pay much attention to the game and still win. Yeah, we've gone 2 hours and we only have 6 more victories needed. Next, we have a game on Steam called Escape Game Fort Beyond, which seems like it is an escape the room game show in which you're playing escape the room puzzles, which then makes it kind of more of a believable experience. There's a British show called The Crystal Maze that's basically that idea, and I wouldn't be surprised if there's a escape game TV show somewhere. This does kind of look like somewhat asset flippy too, but there might actually be something to this. $25.99, English and French. So maybe there is a French show called Escape Game, or Fort Boyard, not Beyond. I misread that. I'm gonna put this on the follow list. It's a very expensively priced, and it very easily could just be some low effort puzzles wrapped around a conceit to make it look visually more polished. In all fairness, though, most escape the room games and most puzzle games are either medium effort or low effort puzzles wrapped around a simplistic concept to make it more interesting. The game show idea kind of is a cool idea. I think you could tell a lot more stories and have a lot more variety in gameplay mechanics if you did just say that half of the people were just in a game show instead of having to bend over backwards to have a story happen and make sense otherwise. There hasn't been a lot of games based on being in a game show, but there's been a few of them. There's been some Wipeout style games where you potentially are just a competitor in the TV show Wipeout. Moving on, we have a game on Steam called The Almost Gone, which is tagged as a point and click adventure mystery. I don't know if it really is that, or if it is more of a different type of experience. It seems to me like it's a little bit different, almost cell phone-ish. Seems like you rotate your perspective and you get some zoom in areas you can see, and maybe you do some drag and drops to a puzzle. Interesting. $11.99, bunch of language supported. It has a first chapter free demo. This is what I would have wanted to see for all demos, is them to be mandated to be labeled as demo, to be play the first chapter for free, click now, and then the buy now button to always be right at that point. Although that does bring about an interesting question, is should you release a demo to a game before the final version of that game is available? Probably not. You probably should have your game 100% complete, then put out the demo. That way, if somebody plays the demo for 5 minutes, they love it, and they want to buy your game, they can do it. The only thing you're doing by putting out a demo for a game that isn't available for purchase is increasing the odds that somebody will either completely forget your game existed, or find out by playing the demo that they didn't think they're going to have a good experience with it. And I guess that is the risk of having a demo in the first place, but there's really, as I'm thinking about it at the moment, I think no benefit to having a demo of a game that's not available for purchase. It would be the equivalent of giving out free samples at a grocery store back in the day when they did that. I doubt they'll ever do that again. like they would give out free samples for new food products, but then the new food products were available for sale right where the free samples were being given in most cases. So if you gave out free samples for a food product that's not coming out for a month, particularly at the grocery store, there's a decent chance that by the time whoever ate the free sample, they would have forgotten completely about it by the time they go back to a grocery store to shop again. Anyways, moving on, we have a game on Steam here called The Legend of Hyperstar, and it looks like a pretty game, but I imagine this is one of those Chinese attempts at making like an MMO, and so it looks pretty, but there's no real game there. We can see it's rated mostly negative. It's early access, $5.39, English and Chinese. Let's see if we can see any of the reviews. Nope. The web server is down, but I don't need to see the reviews anyway, so I'm just gonna close that page. Yeah, that was not going to make it. Come on. Next, we have a game on Steam called A Place Forbidden, which looks like an asset flip horror game with some dark screenshot syndrome. I don't think I've had to say dark screenshot syndrome at all this week because we haven't seen a lot of horror games. It's free, English full audio allegedly, so I guess if you're interested, check it out. It doesn't look like it is even a student project or anything. Even if it was, it doesn't look like it would be anything that I would cover. Here it's labeled as a demo on the 2020 Haunted PS1 demo disc. So apparently this is like a really old game from PlayStation 1. Well, if this is a PlayStation 1 game, it looks fairly nice for that. But that doesn't really change anything other than I can say it looks nicer than what I would have thought a PlayStation 1 game looks like. But with the exception of PT, the playable teaser, no demo or horror demo in particular has any real relevancy. Next, we have the Tokyo Game Show 2020 online is set for September 23rd through the 27th. Which, okay. They are going to do some kind of announcements for the Tokyo Game Show. I wouldn't have been surprised if they just decided to not put out any of the announcements for the Tokyo Game Show and leave the Japanese companies to either make their own announcements or just put everything on hold and do nothing. See, next we have a game on Steam called Keen, a One-Girl Army, which is a slide puzzle game where she seems to slide and dash in direct directions while also being kind of like a one of the rhythm games where the characters move on certain beats. This is already on my follow list. It's $14.39. We might actually be hitting a level of content that has just been waiting. It's been extra content we never got around to since Monday. That is a possibility. Next, we have a game on Steam called Dungeons of Trials. This looks like a dungeon crawler and might be using that maze engine that seems to be floating around as an asset that can be flipped around. Yeah, looks like a kind of badly animated dungeon crawler. And you really would have to do something amazingly interesting to make a dungeon crawler sellable to me. $2, English only. the general idea of a dungeon crawler kind of falls flat, because it's just a guarantee of grinding, a guarantee of bad experiences. Just boring experiences. Even the anime dungeon crawlers out there that are selling themselves on bright, colorful anime characters and often in scantily clad outfits, even those probably wouldn't convince me to buy them, because the gameplay is just going to be so generic. Moving on, TechRaptor has an article, Brigadine, the Legend of Runeseria, or Runercia, I guess Runercia is how you pronounce that. I noticed, I've heard the word Runeseria somewhere else, but that must be a different story. Anyways, they have a review. Let's see what kind of game. It looks like it's a hex grid strategic placement game. And it doesn't look particularly interesting as far as the little characters. And then the little faces are a different kind of animation style. It's a little bit sharp and a little bit different, but maybe not my style. They gave it a 7.5. Though a bit thin on content, Brigadine offers a solid tactical experience with in-depth mechanics that hardcore and casual fans alike may enjoy. The pros are a diverse set of tactical options with overall weak AI, a lack of meaningful mechanics outside of battle, and paper-thin characters and plot. But then it also has tons of troop types with a lack of... I guess maybe you're supposed to line up these... I wish they would figure out how their system is supposed to work, because some people write these reviews for TechRaptor one way and other people write the reviews for TechRaptor a completely different way. It's inconsistent to say the least, and it becomes a bigger problem because you have to scroll way down here to figure out who the person is who is even the author. They don't even mention his name. It's just not listed here. It's about the author. You see a picture of him. It's labeled as staff writer, and so unless my ad blocker was accidentally programmed to not say his name, I have no idea who his name is. And as far as I know, this picture has no relation whatsoever to a staff writer. It could be there's only one staff writer and there's dozens of pictures to make it seem like there's multiple staff writers. But to get back to the game itself, I'd say it's probably a pass for me. Yeah, I don't know how much I could put up with this art style. It's got kind of like a stained glass art style to it, which would be interesting on the cover of like a manga, but I don't know if every panel of a manga was like that, or every panel of a comic book was drawn this way, if my eyes wouldn't get a little tired and glazed over. Even in this image you can see there's just a ton going on. Even in looking at one character here, you have a girl with an earring, and then she's got lipstick, and she's got all kinds of shading in her hair, but then she also has this crown of leaves, and then she's got this high collar costume. And then you look at this guy, he's got a big old headdress, and he's got single strands of hair going. And then you look at this girl, and when you start looking at the outfit, it's just even crazier. And you've got another girl over here with a huge outfit, and you got another guy with a huge outfit, and then you've got another guy with a huge outfit. It's just a lot of detail in that, and it lacks a certain level of negative space that I think you need to have in a lot of art compositions and framing. Otherwise the image will just feel too busy and you'll exhaust the viewer, the audience, mentally. Moving on, Komatsu has an article, The Legend of Heroes Hajimari no Kisekai details Magical Girl Elisa RS minigame and more character episodes. So, this must be some new JRPG game. Let's see, minigame Magical Girl Elisa RS, which stands for R shooting, which maybe means rail shooting. Okay. And then here's more magical girls than what I would say this outfit is. And this looks more like a 3D shoot 'em up game. Wow, this minigame definitely looks way different than what the main game was showing me. Yeah, it looks very, very different. Okay. Yeah, one of these feels more like a Tales of Cold Steel style game, and then the side game is straight up into a standard magical girl fantasy game. But I like when stuff like that happens every now and then, because it does potentially open up a possibility of bringing in a different audience, or allowing the creator of an art piece to go in a different way and just have some fun and go on a break. The spin-off OVA or OAV style anime shows, direct-to-DVD animes that they would make, where they would have a TV series that would be serious, and then the OAV would be non-serious or set in a different universe completely. And they've kind of stopped doing that. Next, we have a game on Steam called Aim Master H, which is just a low-effort shoot the target game with the promises of sexual content for $2.39. It is Friday, so I'm not surprised we're saying adult content, but it does also seem like adult content is pretty much just going to come at any point nowadays, or at least for a while that seemed to be the case. If we see no adult games at all for the next week until next Friday, then I would potentially buy into the idea that they are back to kind of holding everything until Friday, so there's no press releases around it and there's less hype. And honestly, if Steam made the argument that adult games sold better on Friday, I'd be willing to believe that. Yeah. But anyways, we have another game on Steam called Galmon Folklore Monster Girls Galore that's tagged nudity, and it's an RPG Maker game, and it looks hideous and awful. English is not supported. It's selling for $15.29, Japanese only. So yeah, I'm not gonna bother to show it because half the screenshots are not close enough to being YouTube family friendly for my tastes. Komatsu has an article, Phoenix, spelled with 2 X's, Bandai Namco, and Dentsu form Capital Alliance to assist independent developers. I don't recognize either one of these companies other than Bandai Namco. Phoenix, that logo, I may have seen that once, but okay. So they're forming a committee, which Japanese people love to form committees for lack of a better description, and they're going to assist in the development, visualization, and game production for indie game developers. and we'll see how far we get with that. Let's see. Next, we have a game on Steam called Penguin's Dogma, which is a horror asset flip game with a penguin chasing you by the looks of it. So clearly this is supposed to be Dragon's Dogma joke parody name, and they have the P and the D highlighted to make references to the PT playable teaser demo. This definitely looks like PT. You know, in a funny way, I'm surprised that this isn't connected to Disgaea, because the Disgaea series has a penguin, or a lot of penguins. But yeah, I don't see a connection there. Is there anything else to say about this game? It's $6.24. It's English and Japanese. Yeah. There's nothing more to say there. And see, I'm in a weird position because apparently I have a lot more games open past the Humble Bundle point, and I don't know why that would be the case. Let's see. Next, we have a game on Steam called DMLC, which looks like it is a visual novel that very possibly is not translated to English. It's tagged as an adventure, choose your own adventure, and comedy. English not supported, $29.99, Japanese only. Yeah. I don't know why you wouldn't just call this a visual novel, though. It seems fairly much like it's a visual novel. Although there is a heart bar here that might indicate that you actually have some kind of life points. But I don't know if that is enough to justify making the argument that it's not a visual novel when it still looks very much like a visual novel. Next we have Mr. Driller Drill Land, which is a new game in the Mr. Driller series, which I guess I have to put that on the follow list. I'm not sure if I really would ever want to play this. I should give it a chance though. I don't know if I've ever played a Mr. Driller game, but it seems like it's not too different from like a Dig Dug game. $29.99 though is incredibly expensive, and a whole bunch of languages and a third-party EULA. So it's really expensive, and that is Bandai Namco trying to sell it to you, and so no surprise it's that expensive. Bandai Namco loves to try and overcharge. Moving on, Gematsu has an article here. Puzzle Bobble VR announced for Oculus Quest, which that's interesting because that would be a new spin on the Bubble Bobble, Puzzle Bobble genre, taking it from a flat 2D game into a 3D game. Let's see what this article is. It's caught my attention. Let's see. Seal no Surge DX and AR no Surge DX announced. Platforms and release date not announced. That's not a lot of information. Let's see. It was first released for the PS Vita in 2012. What kind of game is it? It's tagged as an RPG. Blocker. Wow, he took me out in one turn. Well, that stinks, but I can't really complain, can I? I'm doing so well otherwise. Gamatsu has an article here. Bubble Bobble 4 Friends for PS4 launches in November in the West alongside a Switch update. Does it really tell us anything that Bubble Bobble 4 Friends may not come to the Xbox Series X or PC? Not really. I don't think so, at least. It would be nice to see that. See games like that come to the PC and the Xbox Series X, but old arcade Bandai Namco games that aren't going to have a lot of relevancy even in Japan, like, that kind of doesn't matter. But it definitely doesn't help the Xbox Series X. The only thing I could think that's really going to help the Xbox Series X in Japan is the fact that the PlayStation 5 looks like it is going to be an incredibly large piece of equipment and not potentially fit on people's shelves. So the PlayStation 5 is going to be the console that people are going to get 2 jobs to get a bigger shelf, whereas the statement that was once made was the PlayStation 4 or 3 was going to be the console that was going to be so good you were going to get a second job to afford it. Which that was just an incredibly tone-deaf, ridiculous statement to have a PlayStation executive say. Next we have a game on Steam called Bring Dad Home, which is apparently a game where your father is drunk and you're protecting him from the many dangers of the world as he slowly wanders in what could only probably be an infinite runner in different levels. So this is $2.24 with a bunch of languages. I think I'd be willing to put this on the fall list. It's cheap enough. It looks like it might very well be a funny enough game to spotlight and say, yeah, this is one of those joke games that we've all seen and we all know. But it does have some reason to actually be shown off compared to the many joke games that have no reason to exist at all. See, next we have Rival Stars Horse Racing Desktop Edition on Steam. And there might be an idea here. If I could find like one really good horse racing game, I could see spotlighting that and just saying, well, okay, we now have, I've played one of those games in my life and that's more than enough. So this might be the one. I've already got this on the fall list. Although at $39.99, that's where it is going to run into trouble, because the real horse racing enthusiasts out there would be willing to pay $39.99, and I absolutely wouldn't be willing to pay that. So I need something that would be like a $5 game that would be a horse racing game of some level of quality. And that's kind of almost an impossible ask to have a niche game sell at a below average price to bring in a non-fan. See. Apparently Alpha Dia Genesis is on. Alpha Dia Genesis is available for pre-order on Xbox One. This is another JRPG looking game. I don't recognize it though, so it may very well have never come to Steam. Next we have Forgotten Trace Thanatos in Nostalgia, which is tagged nudity, so I better not show it. It's looks like it's just another visual novel. It's not even widescreen. And there was one screenshot that kind of showed the butt, so in the background. It's selling for $8.99 for Chapter 1 Complete Edition, which is questionable what they mean by Chapter 1 Complete Edition. That seems like contradictory. But yeah, I'll put these visual novels on the follow list until I can figure out what more to do with them. Okay. Let's put this on the field first. Put this on the field. Let's put this on the field. Let's put this on the field. Put that on the field. But this guy's gonna win. Regardless. Twitch support was having more trouble, where view counts were not accurately depicting the total number of viewers. On the 24th, they think they fixed it. Twitch is also being sued by probably a lot of people, but there's at least somebody suing them for the vast amount of Twitch thoughts on the platform. And I don't know on what grounds that becomes a lawsuit other than a breach of contract and that they are not consistently enforcing their guidelines, which Twitch is guilty of that almost certainly, because they definitely have kicked off male streamers for being shirtless while severely ignored female streamers who have been basically topless or had nip slips or done worse things. And that definitely is a reason why when Mixer shut down we didn't hear any real talk of people moving back to Twitch or moving to Twitch. Moving on, we have a game on Steam called Ancient Evil, which I don't know how this actually plays. A real-time tactical puzzle game where you need to pass severe tests and win the final battle. It's almost like a movement strategy placement game with some puzzles in your paths. Its early access is $1.19. It's English, allegedly full audio. I'm going to put this on the follow list and see if maybe it could sell itself as doing something new and different. Take note, we've stopped getting the free wins and disconnects. That only seems to happen when the servers are having trouble, where I'd like to see it happen more often. Next we have a game on Steam called Click Monster, which is just an idle clicker against monsters. I don't see anything here of interest. It's early access. It has no reason to be early access. It's $1.19, English only, 6 achievements. We're starting to see more things be on sale for $1.19 instead of being free to play. And there was definitely a period about 6 months ago where we were starting to see a lot of games just creep up in the base price, where they were selling for $2 or $3, or even 99 cents when they should have been closer to 64 cents. I imagine we're going to see a backtracking on that momentum as people have less money to spend, and the low effort game developers recognize that and try to get more sales. And I wouldn't be surprised if in increasing their prices they quickly learned that they were making less money. Next we have a game on Steam called Go Go Cowboy, which looks like it's just a low effort asset flip top down twin stick shooter. Maybe not even an asset flip, maybe just a low effort top down twin stick shooter. Yeah, definitely doesn't look very polished when you have entire sections of your screenshots that are just solid colors with some specs on it. $1.19 discounted, English full audio. Next we have a game on Steam called Hard Driver, which is apparently a shoot 'em up where you're driving a flying car. Yep, again, looks like a silly joke game. Seems like they didn't really put a lot of effort into it. It's $1.19, English full audio, 6 achievements. I wonder if 6 achievements is a new minimum and you have to have at least 6 achievements. I don't know why that would really change anything though, because it would be still fairly easy to ensure that that 6 achievements are easily accomplished. And unless Steam was going to do something particularly cruel, like say we're going to remove achievements from your game if we find that 80% of all players who've played the game for more than 2 hours have all the achievements, I think that wouldn't fly very well. Speaking of not flying very well, the sequel to Hard Driver 1, Hard Driver 2, also came out, so they're flooding the Steam website. It really makes no sense. Even if you do have 2 games, why not wait a week? Why put the exact same sequel to the first game? And you can see that the sequel to this game actually does look completely different and play completely different than the first game. And that's because they're just naming some low effort games Hard Driver, and they thought of a name before they thought of a gameplay concept, probably. It'd be very easy for Steam to tell people that they can't put more than 1 game per day out. That would only stop trolls and low effort game developers trying to flood the Steam marketplace. No legitimate game developer would run into a problem with that. Not even EA. Like, even when EA did bring all their games to Steam, like, that was a special circumstance, and I could see Steam allowing them to do it. But even if they just had said, no, EA, you have to put out each of your old games on a different day, so what? That would have been fine. That would work perfectly fine to say Mirror's Edge Catalyst comes out one day, the next day is Dead Space 2, the next day is some other game that EA had. They had plenty of games. They could have had a whole week of announcements. Moving on, we have a game on Steam called Catapult King, which looks like it's a Bloom Blocks style game where you're trying to break things with a catapult. Looks like a cell phone game, but looks nicely polished also. It's early access for $10.04, which probably makes it too expensive. 70 achievements, that's interesting. That's a lot. Put this on the follow list. But it does seem fairly overpriced. Let's see, Gamatsu has, for the PS4 and Switch, Yokai Watch Jam, Yokai Academy Y, Goken Setskatsu Japanese TV commercials. These definitely look like different characters than the yokai characters I've seen before. But I guess maybe they moved to a new generation. Yokai Watch being still second fiddle, I would say, to Digimon and Pokemon by far. And I'm not sure if many, if any, of those games have ever made it to the West. I think maybe one or two of them have. Okay. Let's see. What we want to do is we want to block things that we can block. I've probably been playing poorly here and could have been doing a lot more of this. And I still would really love to be able to program this to just be an automated script. Attack. Yeah, it's just attack with those two. Next, we have a game on Steam called The Rig, A Star Map to Murder, which seems to be a VR kind of horror space murder mystery game. It's $12.74. It requires VR. It's English only. Put it on the follow list, but that's about as far as it could ever go. Is considering it requires VR headset. I don't know if that was the right one to block. Next, we have a game called Lisa's Memory, which looks like a shoot 'em up game. I'm getting sleepy, man. I really gotta figure out a way to stop getting sleepy. Yeah, this looks like a kind of weirdly animated but kind of poorly animated platformer shooter game. Its English is not supported. It's $3.99. It's Chinese only. I don't know why you'd give it an English title then if English is not supported as a language. That seems fairly pointless. See, Gamatsu has an article here for the Switch. Ninjala downloads top 1 millions. Free-to-play battle action game was released on June 24th. But it does have a lot of microtransactions in it. So I still don't think it's going to be as popular, as good as Splatoon. because of that. I think it's not going to get the advertising and the push that Splatoon would have got because of Splatoon being a Nintendo first-party title, I think. And it's not going to get the audience that it could have gotten if it had just been a standard game with no microtransactions. And now I'm kind of wondering if we won't just see a Splatoon 3 come out and eventually blow it out of the water. See. Next, we have a game on Steam called Time Assassin, which is, I think, just a low-effort asset flip game. Maybe a Chinese game, too. It looks pretty ugly and very scattered as far as what the goal in the gameplay really would be. It's early access, $1.99, English and Chinese. Yeah. Does not look good. See, next we have Conspiracy Field Fog Shadow, which is tagged as a puzzle RPG game, but looks to me like a visual novel game. It's going with the slightly taller and skinnier anime girl art style that was more common, I'd say, about half a decade ago or so. English is not supported. This is $3.19, which is really cheap for a visual novel, and it's Chinese only. Interesting. But I will say, as a Chinese visual novel, that does look a lot better than most of their offerings by far. So it seems like they might be improving. Speaking of China, a new article announcement came out saying that they found that 20 of the major Chinese company directly have control or backing by the Chinese military government. Noda, Tencent, I'm sure I'm fairly certain was in that list. Huawei was in that list. It really is just a no-duh statement, though. Everybody knew that. Everybody knew that. Everybody has known that for quite a while. So it is really just a matter of more people are now willing to come out and say it and stop acting duplicitously and trying to profit off of a potential Chinese economy that doesn't really exist and may never really be open to them. But on the other hand, let's say Tencent, since we know that's a video game company that almost certainly does have some financial backing and direct control, if not implied control by the Chinese government. Let's say Tencent is told that is just banned from doing business with all companies in the West. And let's not just say the United States, let's just say the West in general. Or all companies outside of China in particular. Tencent in particular has invested a lot of money and they own a lot of stocks and shares. It's, as far as I know, there's no good or easy way to say, Tencent, you don't own these shares. These shares don't count. Your voting shares don't count. When these companies have their annual meetings, you don't get to vote. You don't get to sell your shares to other people and profit from it. We're just going to null your ownership and take your money and effectively rob you. Like, I don't think that there's a system like that. The only system that even starts to even sort of work that way would be something that would be equivalent to, like, forgiving the debts of Germany after World War II, which a part of the reason why Germany was involved in World War II is because they didn't forgive the debts of Germany in World War One. But yeah, I don't think there's ever been a system like that, or an embargo. When Cuba went communist, certainly they just took all the wealth of the rich people in Cuba and made a communist socialist country. I think they're socialist, Cuba. Yeah. So, but yeah, I don't see how the United States would ever actually set that precedent. And if they were going to set that precedent, even from a video game perspective, I don't know why you set the precedence by taking Tencent's ownership of game companies away from them, instead of, say, taking Jeff Bezos' ownership of Amazon.com away from him, which would be a more internal affair solution and would be very helpful against the monopoly that has occurred around Amazon.com. Even when rich people are found to be downright criminals, it's close to impossible for an average person to recover any of the money that they stole. It's years and years of long prolonged civil battles, court cases. At best, you end up transferring the money that was stolen from the hands of the thief to the hands of a lawyer. And class action suits don't really work to solve that problem. Moving on, we have a game on Steam called Heat, and it's labeled Heat plus Homestead. It's mixed reviewed already. This game actually looks somewhat polished. If you told me it was made 5 or 6 years ago, I'd say, alright, well, this looks like a decently animated game for that time. It's $7.19, English full audio, single or online PvP. So what do the reviews say? Absolute scam, don't buy it. Don't ever buy anything from these devs again. For the third time they developed a game which they don't finish. I don't understand why Steam already hasn't banned these guys. Next time when I see a product of these devs, stay away. Not a penny from these guys again. So apparently this developer has a history, and there is one game on their storefront called Reign of Kings that also kind of looks like the same game. And that criticism does make a very good point as to if games are getting half reviewed negative, you should probably pay attention and see what's going on. It seems like it's fairly easy enough to buy positive reviews to keep most games out of the mostly negative category, and so a lot of things are flying under the radar, at least for a while. Enough for people like me who's looking at every single game that comes out to see them. See. Next we have a game on Steam called Hexplore, which looks like a very old game. Looks very, very old. From Mirrorsoft. $4.54. English full audio. Well, I don't think this game has any relevancy to me. I don't recognize it if it was an old like DOS or Windows 95 game. I don't see anything in the description that says it's actually an old game. So as far as I know, this is a brand new game that is just being released at this point. See, choose blockers. I think I probably failed several times over there. I can definitely say that this cutscene, this animation looks familiar in the sense that, not that I've seen this specific animation, but I definitely have seen games like Dungeon Keeper had animation like this, and maybe the first Diablo game kind of looked animated like this. So if this was a brand new game using very old technology to look like a very old game, they're doing an extremely good job at it. Gamma Sutra has an article. Ubisoft is going to investigate the rampant sexual assault and harassment accusations. I think for most part going forward, I'm going to stay quiet on a lot of these accusations and this stuff going forward. It seemed, in retrospect, when I thought about how I felt about it and how I was giving my opinions about it when these Me Too accusations came out, that I was probably not being as objective as I should be, or even willing to consider the accusations were valid and accurate, which definitely, since I was not bothering to actually read all the articles, opens myself up to just looking like a jackass if it turns out that there is even one accusation amongst the groups of accusations that is true. I'm still not anywhere closer to the believe all period or believe all ... concept, but I should be skeptical on both sides. And regardless, even if there has been kind of an increasingly large number of false accusations that have been placed, or if not false accusations, severely exaggerated accusations. So yeah, I'll just stay silent and we'll see what Ubisoft finds out. In a similar way, there was the complaint against the game developer in France that made Detroit Become Human, and that seems like that was a story that really would have gone one way, and yet the court case seemed to have decided in the opposite direction. So I was shocked and surprised by that. Let's see. I thought I was about to win, and yet now he's at 36 health. Creatures you control gain lifelink until the end of the turn. Well, I guess we'll do that. This has been a particularly long game. Next, we have a game on Steam called Midnight Renegade. This will probably be the last game we play too. This looks like nothing, just incredible dark screenshot syndrome going on here. Free to play, English only, nothing of interest. Let's see. Can't tap. Gamatsu has an article. The Last of Us Part 2 sales top 4 million in 3 days. So, negative reviews combined with positive critic reviews seems to not really have changed the outcome in any real way as far as the sales. I think we already talked about this, but Apple TV is getting the Xbox Elite Controller Series 2 and adaptive controller support. I'm still a little disappointed, though, that they didn't really add anything new as far as the Xbox Series X controllers. But I guess they can't really add anything too new. Yeah, I guess as long as they have a commitment to backward compatibility, you can't do anything, can you? You're just forever stuck in this situation where you have to have a controller that at least has all the abilities that the old controllers does, and maybe you can add a new button here or there, but that new button will probably not get used that often. If you think about it, the back button and the start button and the Xbox menu button and the share button, those are severely less used compared to the A button or the X button or the analog sticks. OpenCritic has an article here. 7 EA games will be hitting the Switch in the next year, which I suspect means 7 old EA games, for the most part, will be hitting the Switch. It'll be interesting to see if it's new games. Burnout Paradise Remastered is old. Apex Legends is kind of new, but not brand new. FIFA 21 might be brand new. Lost in Random I've never heard of. Plants of Zombies Better for Neighborville is old. Need for Speed Hot Pursuit Remastered is old. And an unannounced Velen Studio game. We have no idea if that's old or not, but I would assume it would be new since it's unannounced. Next, we have a game on Steam called Car Trader Simulator. Welcome to business. This is already rated mixed. This is an example of a game where you'd be doing someone's job, so it almost certainly wouldn't be fun. It's free to play, English full audio with a bunch of other language support. And it's a weird one, for sure. Don't know why anybody would think that that would be a game somebody would want to play. Let's see. Next we have a game on Steam called Fantasylands, which looks like a ugly hex grid tabletop game of some sort. Looks really, really ugly. Free, so I guess the price is right. English only. And we've been going about 3 hours now, and I'm ready to wrap up. Next we have a game on Steam called Run, which is an ugly infinite runner game from the looks of it. It is also free to play, English full audio. Let's see. Next we have a game on Steam called Angels on Tanks, which looks like it's an adult game, but oddly is not tagged as having any nudity or sexual content in it. It might as well be an adult game by the looks of it, but I wouldn't be surprised if this is just censored to be PG-13 plus. This is $9.74, which is way too expensive, and it's English and Spanish. And the actual gameplay looks uninteresting. And then we have another tank game right next to it called Tank Narok, which looks like it's a top-down twin-stick shooter game of no real interest. $4.89. Yep. 32 achievements, English only. Then we have another garbage game called Twitcheroos Run Socks and Streams, which looks insane. I should have curated some of these games out. This is free to play with a bunch of languages, and apparently they're promoting Twitch streamers with the game. Which is the last thing I want to see, is that video game streamers start putting out their games on Steam just to act as advertisements for themselves. Even the PewDiePie games aren't really good enough quality to deserve to be on Steam. Yeah, that one game was so long, just so incredibly long. And I need to get 2 more victories, I think, today. Probably this weekend would be fine. And I'd like to get 5 more victories. I want to just, with this mastery level, get as much done as possible. And I know at the moment I don't have this, so I didn't get any of this stuff. But that's fine, because as long as I do get this by having it 3,000 gems, I should still be fine. It's 3,000 gems, yeah. 3,400 gems, which is a little bit more. They say it's a $200 plus value when fully unlocked. Meanwhile, we have a daily deal for another pack on sale, so we'll take it. And we'll open it up. But on a day-to-day, like game-to-game turn of events, you're not really making a lot of progress towards getting new cards. In all fairness, Hearthstone was even worse. Like, playing 3 games or winning 3 games would get you 10 gold if you weren't also accomplishing daily quests. So you at least have a better return compared to Hearthstone, but then you balance that out with how many cards were in Hearthstone or a single Hearthstone expansion. There was severely fewer cards and fewer garbage cards in particular. So we have about 5 more tabs. Let's wrap this up and then that'll be the end of the stream. We have a game here called Kinbo, which seems to be a Rambo clone, but in actuality it seems like it's a super zoomed out just platform shooter. Like way too zoomed out. Contra clone, I guess might be a good term. $2.39 discounted, English and Russian. Next we have a game called Goblin Rush, which might be a VR game. Looks like it's just a dungeon crawler game. No, looks generic. Free to play, but it requires VR. English only. Let's get that to start loading and that to start loading and that to start loading. I'm just gonna try and click on everything. Next we have a game called West Legends, which looks like it's a player versus player twin stick shooter game. Early access $2.99, single player and online player versus player. I don't see anything particularly interesting there. Here we have this game called Little Witch Nobita, which we saw this game and we put it on the fall list, and it got more coverage and it got more people's attention than I thought it would. So it is overwhelmingly positive right now. It's still an early access game, but people are really interested in this. Apparently this is actually a rather hard game because I saw people describing it as a anime witch / Dark Souls game. It's $8.99, so we'll keep an eye out for this on the fall list. It would be nice definitely to see more games that end up on the fall list when I do a fall list cleanup that are overwhelmingly positive compared to most of them just being never reviewed or reviewed mixed at best. Here we have a game called City Runner, which we'd seen a game very similar to this in the past week or so, and clearly this is just a low effort asset flip for $4.99, English only. And then at some point I was looking at the Mass Effect N7 Digital Deluxe Edition, which is mixed, and I put that on the following list. And at some point I was looking at Titanfall, and I guess that became overwhelmingly positive, so I put that on the wish list. It does seem like a lot of the EA games that came out and still have EA Origin, but a lighter version of EA Origin. It seems like people have stopped kind of review bombing them just because they're EA games that have Origin in them, and now they are getting more realistic reviews. But I was going through my wish list and putting things like Star Wars Battlefront at the top because it's a kind of highly relevant game for Star Wars fans. I could see playing that, or and there's definitely a lot of games on in my ranked order on my wish list that are kind of iffy and kind of irrelevant, so I'm trying to sort it a little bit. There's only so much sorting I can do because my wish list still has like 2,500 games on it, and I don't really plan on going on much of a shopping spree to adjust that and reduce that number. Yeah, I just don't I don't think I'm going to be doing a lot of that. A lot of me getting 500 more games is probably also the equivalent of me buying enough games for the next 5 years, because I've just slowed down, just gotten slower. Alright, and now I'm trying to get the Humble Bundle store to load, and while that's happening, I will look at my Twitter feed. Yes, Your Grace is now available for Xbox One. That was a game that came and went real quickly. And let's see if there's any other bits of news. The one thing I would say I would have liked to see with Steam points is for them to turn into a way of buying a credit or buying a game. That's the one thing they don't do. So if you really think about it, getting these small items some other ways and then being able to sell those small items on the Steam storefront meant you could get actual money, although it probably wouldn't be a lot. I have like 80 cents I've gotten from selling things on the Steam marketplace. There was a chance there, though, you could have actually bought a 99-cent game. With the Steam point system, they are locking out any of those small items that you buy with points as being so that they're not tradable or marketable, which means you can't sell them for real world money. So it is a lock-in system instead of a open market system. So oddly, they are kind of going backwards from their libertarian point of view with the Steam points, because they are effectively store credit, store currency, as it were. And if you were an employee in the United States and they were trying to pay you with store credit, that's totally illegal, although they definitely have tried to do it. See. Still scrolling through my Twitter feed. I stopped there for a second. As a sponsored advertisement, Gamma Sutra has started doing sponsored advertisements quite a lot. APB Reloaded is removing loot boxes. We might be seeing the end of loot boxes in general, but I don't know why how the Steam point system would integrate into the idea of the death of loot boxes, if it does, or if it's something completely unrelated, which it very well might be a completely unrelated decision. Let's see. Well, 2 hours ago, there was a breaking news that Microsoft is going to permanently close nearly all of its retail stores. So, yeah, I don't know how they would be a payment plan for the Xbox Series X now, because the only way I could have imagined that to work would have been through the retail store. I'm seeing a lot of games getting delayed. Announcements of delays. But we also do have a decent amount of news that came out in between the last 3 hours. THQ Nordic says you can officially hit rock bottom at Steam. Upgrade your profile with the backgrounds and impress your friends with Dolphin, amazing emoticons available now at the new point shop. See, I don't understand whether this... It seems like they're hyping it up and promoting it, but I don't get the idea of saying you hit rock bottom. Hitting rock bottom's a bad thing. Oh, I guess maybe... Oh. THQ Nordic is talking about the SpongeBob SquarePants emoticons. Here it is. Here. And Bikini Bottom was where SpongeBob SquarePants lives, so that's a weirdly phrased weirdly phrased way to advertise it for people not in the know, because it really does come off as just that they're insulting people. See if there's any other bits of news worth mentioning. I'm opening all these new tabs, just going backwards instead of going forwards. There's a lot of Last of Us screenshots getting tweeted. I think I've seen everything here. Apparently there's going to be a big update for Plague Inc. They have a sneak peek article that they posted with the fake news, I guess maybe is the next big addition. I knew they were adding a fake news element. TechRaptor has an article saying Square Enix is announcing its former E3 titles throughout the summer. So Square Enix will be announcing games, which really this is almost a non-announcement announcement that no doubt Square Enix is, like every other video game company, is going to announce things that they planned on announcing when they get around to it. TechRaptor also has APB Reloaded is removing loot boxes, which it's its 10th year anniversary. I don't know if they've had loot boxes for the entire 10 years, though. I think maybe they got added and tested, and then they're taking out again. I don't know if that does anything to encourage anybody to actually want to play it now. The next Legend of Heroes Trails game is already in development. Let's see. And that's according to Gamatsu. And here we have a game called Meditation Journey VR Zen Garden, which looks like a VR asset flip game or walking simulator. I feel like it should be a lot more realistic and pretty if you're going to try and do something like that. $13.49 English only. Yeah, I don't think you can even do animated. I think you have to have like a 4K raw footage if you're going to do something like that. OpenCritic has an article, Tales of Arise has been delayed indefinitely. So they're working on other Tales game and they delayed one of them. The Path of Exile beta is delayed until next year, according to TechRaptor. And let's see. Let's see what else we've got. If we can get these pages to load. Gamma Sutra has an article. Insomniac responds to allegations from former staff about a culture of harassment. So, yeah, all these accusations. Part of the problem, I think, with the Me Too movement is the concept of putting things out all at the same time, because it becomes background noise. When if they just had somebody come out and tell their story, like one per day, it would be a lot easier of a narrative to follow. In the same way that if CNN was going to try and list everything they hated President Trump for doing, their narrative is a lot better for them to be a 24-hour news network that just talks about the latest thing he's done, compared to trying to every single day give off this long list of narratives of things he allegedly has done since day one. People are somewhat stupid, in, for lack of a better explanation, and a more boiled down and simplistic narrative often is a better way to tell a tale than repeating things or saying everything at once. Sometimes less is more. Okay, so then that brings me to the Humble Bundle store, and doesn't look like there's any new Humble Bundles. There's a Humble Choice, and I guess I totally have just missed out on the Games for Change bundle. I think that is just gone forever. So yeah, I guess that's fine. I knew it was going to end, and I rolled the dice and decided not to get it, and so now I'm going to have to live with that decision. Alright, well, that's going to be it for this stream. Not too bad. I'm still a little sleepy, but we got 10 out of 15 victories, and we accomplished a decent amount of stuff, and we cleaned up all the news, so Monday isn't going to end up being super long, probably. That's going to be it for this stream. I'll once again remind you that the Steam Summer Sale is going on, so friend me on Steam and gift me a gift card or gift me a game. Now's the time to do that. Otherwise, I ask that you like, share, subscribe, comment, and watch every second of my videos, because all of that helps my YouTube channels. Allegedly, it helps. At least, that's what they say. And if you want a friend or follow me on any social media sites, there's a bunch of links down below. And if you want to support me in a different way, there's also a link to Patreon, which having a few Patreon supporters would definitely be nice too. Thank you for watching.